What was the spark of inspiration that led you to this idea?
Well, oh, that's loud. Um, I'm a nerd. I grew up a nerd, and I was very tech obsessed as a kid. And a lot of my, as people are here, a lot of my friends were coders and hackers, and I just found them very fascinating and interesting. And I always thought that was a interesting subculture to tell a story about, because they were also extreme in their ideology and passionate about sort of this anarchy, but it was like angst in a good way. And I just thought there was something really fascinating. And then it was like, that was probably the thing that made me say I want to do a story about a hacker. But I would say that then later in life, the kind of the other two forces that contributed to me coming up with the idea of robot was the 2008 financial crisis and the anger we all kind of felt about that, and then the Arab Spring. I mean, I'm Egyptian, so right after, there you go, the other Egyptian, and the others. So I went to Egypt right after the Arab Spring, and I have a lot of cousins who are really young, in their late teens or 20s, and they were part of that movement, and they were really angry, and they kind of channeled that for something really positive, and it was really moving, and that was the thing that that was kind of the last piece of the puzzle when I was thinking about the character of Elliot, because it would have been very simple to kind of kept him as this like angst-ridden young man, but to then add this layer where he really wants to save the world, change the world. I thought that would give him a lot of humanity.
Certain scripts come in and I find myself not even getting up for a cup of coffee, and that's rare. And it's what happened with this one. I sat down, and within the first 5 lines, I was like, "Uh-oh, this is good." It felt like when I was younger and I used to read a really good play, and I was taken aback by that, and the things that this guy was saying right off the bat just spoke to me when I wanted to keep investigating it.
Can you give us the time frame of when you actually sat down and made your first stab at the draft?
I literally think I wrote the first draft in a week or two, and you got to remember I was writing it as a movie, so I was like, okay, this is going to be roughly 120 pages, right? The whole thing about Elliot finding out that Mr. Robot wasn't real, that was supposed to be my Act 1 break. That was supposed to be page 30, and I was on page 90, and I wasn't even anywhere close to that. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I mean, this is gonna be a really long, boring movie. And then that's when I decided to convert it into a television show. In a lot of ways, it's a lot better than movies. I mean, nowadays it's like, I mean, I say stupid Marvel movies in the show, but that's not, that was Elliot, that wasn't me. But it is a little frustrating to go to the movies, and it's really your options are superhero movies or Paranormal Activity 27. So television sort of filled that void, you know what I mean? I mean, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, I mean, the list goes on. So yeah, I obsessively watched a lot of TV. And the one thing I do remember is I was a huge fan of Lost. And I remember there was that sense of community around Lost. Like every episode, I mean, I got to the point where we would just invited friends over and we would watch every episode together. And then we would talk about it afterwards, and we would theorize, and we would go on message boards. And I remember thinking, that's awesome. And it's cool now to kind of see that happening a little bit with our show on, because I go on Reddit every now and then, and there's some interesting theories out there. But I love that.
Did you get more than one script at when you first read it, or did you just send one?
No, the first one, that was all I had, and then I kept asking him for more and more and more, and finally, I remember being on the phone with him. He's like, "I'm not keeping this from you. This, I'm not purposely avoiding giving you information." He just hadn't, he hadn't finished them in the way that I think he thought they would be appropriate for me to read. And then I started getting them, and I was like, whoa, hold off, because they were so dense and had so much information. I was like, there's only so much you can take in before it becomes really overwhelming.
What are the things that you're most proud of in terms of what you accomplished, Rami?
I'd say telling a story that is entertaining and just has had the effect on, socially, that people are talking about it from an entertainment standpoint, and it's affecting them, in this social way that I think, some of the best television and film can. It's been profound in that respect, that it's touched people.
But I would say the one thing that always sticks out to me is at the end of episode 7, Elliot does his confessional to his therapist, Krista. And I remember being on set watching this guy just draw me in a way that I have never been drawn in theater, in film, in TV. I mean, just brilliant. And Gloria, who plays Krista, the therapist, was brilliant too. And it was so just. And then I watched it later. Those are the moments where you're like, this is what it's all about. Whatever we're capturing right now, it's almost like you're afraid to touch it. It's like the energy. I think Truffaut said something about the ions in the air are just perfect, and he was brilliant. Gloria was brilliant. Todd Campbell, our cinematographer, filmed the scene, was amazing, and I was just kind of like, oh, just nothing, please, nothing go wrong, and it was just perfect, and I think that's what I feel proudest of.
You can't do it without having phenomenal writing.
Well, that's true.
I remember going up to
Denying
him
that.
at the monitor after, and I was like, what do you need? What can we tweak? And he's like, very rare moment where he's like, nothing. That never happens.
Sam, there's so many rules broken, so many things that sort of defy convention in the show, including having your protagonist look at the audience and say, "Are you in on it?" and things like that. Was that in your mind from the get-go?
I thought there was something really radical and interesting about that I had not seen before, and so it allowed us to go into all those different directions. What's interesting about that is it does allow us to color outside the lines, but it totally makes sense at the same time. It doesn't feel like we're trying to be different for the sake of being different, and that's kind of like the beauty of it.
We got in a fight once on set. He was like, stop looking at the effing lens. And I was like, we used really wide angles on set. So, I think the lens was like an 18, and anywhere you look into nearby the frame of an 18, it's going to look like you're pretty much staring down the barrel, which I wasn't. But
He was.
I remember looking back into the camera, and I knew he was watching the monitor. I said, not looking in the lens. But we laugh about it. We have that kind of camaraderie on set, which is cool.
You have hand-selected 5 clips, representative clips, that we'll discuss a little bit. Let's cue the first one, which is described here as your favorite New York scene.
Who are you?
That'll come later. Right now, you have a lot to think about. You have to change the DAD file. You have to put Colby's IP in there. You do that, you'll have set in motion the largest revolution the world will ever see.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew in a summer sky, when our love was new and our hearts were high, when the day was young and the night was long, and the moon stood still for the nightbird's song. If you go away, if you go away, if you go away, but if you stay, I'll make you a day like no day's been. We'll be again. We'll sail on the sun. We'll ride on the rain. We'll talk to the trees and worship the wind. Then if you go, I'll understand. Leave me just enough love fill up my hand. If you go away, if you go away, if you go away, if you go away, as I know you must, there'll be nothing left in the world to trust. Just an empty room full of empty space, like the empty look I see on your face. Can I tell you now, as you turn to go, I'll be dying slowly till your next hello. If you go away, if you go away, if you go away.
Coney Island in general, just a great, almost like an artifact of New York now that doesn't really get filmed a lot. And then you have the great subway shots.
Did you find that when you were shooting, were people, in your shots? Were you having people try to like hover around, or was the
They were. Yeah, but it was great. I mean, I invited it. I mean, otherwise that guy walked right into the middle of towards camera. And I remember people on set were like, "Well, I guess that takes room." I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's the take. Let's move on."
That's the New York of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
You did some big stuff in Times Square, though. How did you pull those off?
I actually just love it. I mean, in the pilot we shot at Times Square, and Rami, we were trying to get the shot where the sun was going down. We were trying to get the shot really quickly. And Rami, you want to tell this story?
Sure. Yeah, we were strapped for time, and no one knew what we were doing, but they knew we had a production going on in Times Square, and so everybody wanted to figure out what was happening. They were taking pictures and kept kind of blowing some takes because people just were interfering, and which is totally normal and understandable. But there was the sun was setting, and at one point I was just like, listen, everybody, if you guys just give us 10 minutes to do this, we'll do all the pictures you want. We can tell you what's happening. I'll fill you in on everything. Just 10 minutes. And so I pushed, asked everybody to get as far back as they could as I'm walking towards that kind of what is becoming an iconic moment where I throw my arms up in the middle of Times Square. But everybody would converge and as we yelled action. And one time I thought I held them all off, and we yelled action. And I remember throwing my arms up and turning around, and everybody had come all the way up.
Just basically didn't listen to any.
Listen.
But
they're looking in camera.
Yeah, if you watch the shot, there's just a bunch of people just staring right into the camera. But you know what? It doesn't
bug me.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's New York.
That scene also is a wonderful example of the great use of music.
I mean, music is so important to me, and I listen to music a lot when I write. And I remember when I came up with the sequence, Neil Diamond is not really the first choice for a cyberpunk thriller, but that to me was why it was kind of perfect. It just added this like weird, quirky thing to it, especially during that moment where Elliot. It was probably like the only time we see Elliot smile ever in the series is during this sequence. And I remember at every stage I would get Neil Diamond, really? Like even Matt Quell, our composer, was amazing. He was like, really, Neil Diamond? But then when we put it in, I think it works perfectly.
Our second clip here is described as the favorite character scene, a big moment for Elliot and Darlene.
How'd it go with the climate control hack?
Handled. I happen to be really smart and good at things. Not like you give a shit.
We should celebrate then. In 43 hours, exactly, our server will no longer be a honeypot. And that rootkit you wrote will take down Evil Corp. We did it, Darlene. It's gonna happen.
We're really doing this? Wow! Oh my God! Be happy! You did this! You did it! Just like that, Elliot. You're gonna change the world.
We did this.
I would love to take credit on this one. But I can't. No, really, this was you. You are seriously the best person I know. You know that? I love you so much. Oh my God, Elliot, what the
I'm sorry.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought, I'm sorry.
Oh my God, Elliot. Did you forget again? Did you forget who I am?
What do you mean? Forget what?
Elliot, I need you to tell me who you think I am.
What are you talking about?
Tell me right now.
What are you saying?
Elliot.
Of course I didn't forget. You're Darlene. You're Darlene.
Elliot.
You're Darlene. I know. I know what she's going to say.
I'm your
Sister. You're my sister.
Can you talk about just what, the emotion of playing that scene, especially for the emotions for Elliot and the emotions for Darlene are so different.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with Carly, and we get along very, very well. So, we've always we started to develop this really brother and sister relationship while we're shooting every day, and we look after one another. We check in with one another all the time. And we'd been talking about this scene for a while, on and off, never really in depth. I think we were both a little apprehensive about it. And I remember one day going to her apartment to work on it, and we started reading, and I looked at her and I go, I don't want to do this. Do you want to do this? And she's like, no. because you wanted to keep it fresh. And so even that day, we were sitting in hair and makeup, and we'd go through the lines, but very without inflecting much at all. And that day, yeah, we kept it pretty fresh.
We're going to get to clip number 3, which is described as the favorite directed scene.
Sound and color. Sound and color. Sound and color.
Go ahead. What's on your mind?
I know you're not without your troubles, but we still haven't discussed the cold 10 miles.
Are you really bringing that up at a time like this?
You asked. I answered succinctly.
Well, perhaps I was too hasty. I'd like for the moment to take in the music. Besides, plenty of other items on our agenda. The Congo can wait.
Oh. Your troubles are weighing heavily on you. Though I'm not entirely sure why. I was told that you know the person responsible.
Yes. Of course we do. We will handle that person as we usually do. You seem a little preoccupied yourself.
I don't believe in preoccupation. It's more of an observation.
Which is?
The infamous Emperor Nero played an instrument very similar to the one she's playing, the lyre. Legend has it that he played it merrily as he watched.
As he watched?
As he watched Rome burn.
I mean, we did that shot 16, 17 times. And you get it wrong, you start all, there's no safe, we were kind of bold. We were like, there's no coverage. There was no way to cut around it. So we had to get it right. And I think just everybody sort of, and it's late at night, I don't even know where we were, and there's a car. I mean, it's just every department, the special effects department had to make sure that the car rig was working. The camera operator, who's amazing, our camera operator Aaron, had to be precise in every movement, and the timing of everything. Blocking was so crucial. B.D. Wong and Michael Christopher were just nailing their performances every single time, and then I take all the credit for it. That's basically directing right there.
Did you have the last line, "While Rome burns"? Did you have that in your head early on in the writing process, or was that something that you came to as you were writing that last script?
No, it was kind of early on, yeah, for sure. I always knew. I think when starting the season, that I always think of that last lines. And the problem is that this scene, I always wanted this scene to be the last scene, but I remember it felt weird to me that Elliot wouldn't be in the last scene, which is why I thought of making it a coda, making it a post-credit sequence. That felt more right. But yeah, that line, I always wanted to end the season on that.
And their fourth clip is favorite music scene.
Man and Van is getting way too legit. It used to just be like drummers with their mom's Honda Odysseys. Now it's an actual company in Queens. I mean, the guys are literally men in vans.
I'd buy morphine from you if you could also get me Suboxone.
Well, it's pretty much impossible to get Suboxone. My supplier doesn't have it. Saw this song live once. It was so rad. Don't you just love hearing your favorite songs in person? Like half deaf from the speakers, everyone going nuts around you.
No.
Direct. I respect that.
I just hate concerts. Lots of people.
You don't like people, huh?
Not most of them, no.
Okay. Well, so by that rationale, if you were to really like one person, it'd be like considered an aberration or an abnormality or special even.
I guess.
Well, I aim for special, so challenge accepted.
Wish we already knew each other. Make this feel less awkward.
You really feel awkward right now.
Yeah.
Well, then I wish we knew each other too then. Oh, yikes. I'm late meeting the girls for drinks. Oh, I'm Shayla.
Elliot.
You know, I do know of a guy who sells Suboxone. He's supposed to be a fucking psychopath, but if you want, I can call him. You might be worth a psychopath. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, and keep the fish, you filthy animal.
The one thing that I love about that scene that I rarely see is in life we listen to music while we talk to our friends sometimes, and it's not like these cheap library songs that you sometimes hear on a lot of TV shows. It's like real great music, The Cure, you know. And I just love that was it was just for me. I thought it felt very clever the way we used it.
Advanced the storytelling in such a great
Yeah.
way. Okay, here's our last clip, then we're going to open it up to Q&A. The last clip is the favorite written scene.
Seen their name on the boards, though. They gotta be new, but they're good.
Oh, rough night. I'm getting off here. I think you should come with me. But only if you didn't delete it. You deleted it, we got nothing to talk about.
You talking to me?
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Who are you? We gotta wait for the cue.
Then what?
Then we're going to Brooklyn, out by Coney Island.
Why? What's there?
Obviously, you're gonna ask a lot of questions. It's weird what you're doing right now, I get it. I can't tell you anything until we get there.
Can't smoke in here. You've been following me. Why? What do you want from me?
My dad was a petty thief. Never could hold down a job, so he just robbed. Convenience stores, shops, small-time stuff. One time he sat me down, he told me something I never forgot. He said, everyone steals. That's how it works. You think people out there are getting exactly what they deserve? No. They're getting paid over or under, but someone in the chain always gets bamboozled. I steal, son, but I don't get caught. That's my contract with society. Now, if you can catch me stealing, then I'll go to jail. If you can't, then I've earned the money. I respected that, man. I thought that shit was cool. As a little kid. A few years after that, they finally caught him. Send him to jail. Dies 5 years later. My respect goes with him. I thought he was free doing what he did, but he wasn't. He was in prison. Just like you are now, Elliot. I'm gonna break you out.
Christian plays that beautifully, perfectly, and I mean, I love introducing characters. I love, especially when, like an important character like that, and that's kind of like halfway through the pilot. So it's important. It's the midpoint. We needed to spin the story in a whole different direction, and it's a long monologue. I'm very long-winded. That's how this even turned into a TV show in the first place. So, and he just kills it. And I gotta say, Rami, even when he's doesn't have dialogue, he didn't really have many lines. His reactions really make the scene, really anchor the scene too.
How did you get on the path to being a writer, to being an actor, and what would you say were pivotal or important moments that allowed you to achieve your goals?
I remember doing Arthur Miller's The Crucible in high school, which was a heavy play, but for some reason I felt like I could handle it. I learned a lot about it, acting from doing that, challenging myself, and I had a really great drama department in high school with an excellent teacher, Judy Weldon.
Where did you go to high school?
Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, California. And yeah, we were doing The Crucible, and we did a pretty good job of it. And I was, I felt like I could express myself through that, and it was the one thing that I was moderately good at. And I started falling in love with reading, Miller's plays, and then it opened me up to the world of theater. And then I wanted to keep going on that track, so I went to University of Evansville and got into their drama department. That's in Indiana, and we were doing classical theater and contemporary stuff. And I remember being on stage there doing a play called The Kentucky Cycle, where Robert Schenken wrote that, and I just filled with emotions and feelings that I think I could have had elsewhere, and the communication with the audience, it was just special. It was like, this is the way to live, if I can make money off of it, or at least survive. Doing that now.
The thing about this industry, I think even with acting, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of just failing a lot. There's a lot of, don't you think? There's a lot of failing. There are like those annoying people that get lucky and like hit it big right off the bat, and they suck. We don't like those people, and that might happen. That might happen to you, and then we'll hate you. But you'll be happy that you're successful, and you won't care. But for the most part, you fail a lot. And I think the thing that I thought that really helped me, especially from school, is that you just have to get all the trying out of the way. I mean, the more times you screw up, the more times you write something that's terrible, hopefully you get all those terrible ones out of the way and start getting the good ones. I mean, obviously you have to be honest with yourself in the whole process. I was a terrible student. I tried to shoot everything I wrote, and that was not a good idea. I was a terrible. So I had to be honest with myself and say I can't do that. And then
I think you can do it now.
No,
you can't.
No, I know nothing about f-stops, and the thing is, it's like one of the things is like you check in with yourself and does this excite me? And I'm like, no, I just want to tell someone else to do it, and then that's more exciting to me. But with writing, I really enjoyed it, and so I didn't enjoy getting lots of rejections, which is what happened, but I had a passion about it, and I kept doing it, and I kept liking it. The other thing that I think gets tricky, especially graduating from school, is you are trying to make a little money, right? That this isn't gonna necessarily come easy, and how are you gonna survive? And I edited to do that. I had odds and ends here to make some money, but I will say this: do not have a plan B career. I have lots of friends who had plan Bs, and that's what they're doing right now, plan B. Did you have a plan B? This was basically do or die, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to have that. It's scary. I mean, it's really. I mean, I just paid off my student loans, and I'm 38.
I just paid it off this year.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. But you kind of have to have the do or die attitude.
Is Elliot like a superhero, and that's the idea of it?
So he's got his cape, which is his hoodie. Right? He's got his superpower, hacking. He's got kind of an alter ego at night. Day job, Clark Kentish. He's a very weird superhero.
Do you sort of feel like you're bridging a gap between film and television, sort of making something that is almost a conglomeration of both?
I never looked at it that way. We were in Zurich, and someone asked me, would you ever make the movie version of Mr. Robot? And I said, we are. This is it. I mean, I'm not looking at it as, now this is a TV show, so I got to shoot it differently. I mean, this is weird for TV or movies, I think. I mean, I think that we're just, whatever it is, it's just, that's kind of, so I never look at it as I'm transforming television I just think we're telling what the story in the way that it wants to be told.
What I really wanted to ask is a lot of my writing centers around mental illness in particular, and I really appreciate a lot for the internal dialogue. It just felt very relatable, and I appreciate that a lot. The other stuff was a little bit more complicated. You have to deal with metaphors or whatever, but I really wanted to hear about you talk about more about that, and especially Rami's playing of it, because the introverted nature of it I thought was really spot on.
Well, I personally have a lot. I mean, I have friends who suffer from mental illness, serious mental illness that I had to sort of deal with directly. And personally, I suffered a lot from social anxiety and OCD. So. Me
too.
Yeah. So I always thought it was so kind of poorly represented. It never rang true to me whenever I saw it in most films and TV. I mean, occasionally, but generally no. But I will say, when I wrote the character on the page, it felt very cold, because I was trying to be authentic to the social awkwardness and his sort of standoffishness. He lies. I remember just taking a step back and being like, man, people are going to think this guy's such an asshole. The one thing I never expected was how Rami just brought this warmth to it, vulnerability to it. And honestly, that I mean, if he had not done that, if I did not have him, that character would not have come off the page like it does now. So
I never read him as being that cold. I mean, I appreciated how honest he was, and you know, it can be hard to sit down and watch a guy like that, but you know, it helps when you have that inner monologue going and being able to say some things that I think a lot of us are thinking about. And it makes him relatable in a sense, no matter what he's saying, because at least he's expressing himself in a way that, you know, I think we get.
Thank you so much. Certainly made me feel less alone.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
I was wondering, being that this is still a network television show, was there ever blowback from the studio about, well, you can't talk about this, or you have to stray away from this? And if you ever had to compromise that?
There's obviously, you know, look, there's standard and practices that you always have to deal with. But honestly, USA has really, I mean, we did some crazy dark shit in the show that had no business being on television, and really no business. And I honestly thought, oh, I mean, like the speech, the Fuck Society speech that Elliot gives, that alone, it's like, wow, like you're really gonna air this? Okay. I gotta give a lot of props to USA. I mean, they were pretty bold and brave, and maybe a little crazy to let us do that, which is great because I'm crazy too. So they really supported us.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm actually a 1L in law school, but hopefully getting into entertainment law, and was really interested in whether or not Elliot constitutes a character of color, because I know that's something that there was a bit of uncertainty as the series progressed of whether he actually is a character of color, and I know that that's really important to viewers, and as well as just to have different diverse portrayals on TV and in media in general.
Yeah, I absolutely think he does. You know, he may have an Anglo-Saxon name, but he's definitely has this ethnic blood running through him somewhere. I mean, I do. So if you put me in that role,
yeah,
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't want the character to be defined by that. He's informed by that, and just like all our characters and all of the diverse characters, but I don't think they should be defined by it.
One thing that stood out when I was doing research for this, your writing staff and your directors in particular were particularly diverse. You had a lot of women. You had a really interesting mix of people working behind the scenes.
Yeah, and by the way, that again, I didn't go out and say let's hire all female directors. They were the best ones that I interviewed, and they're great, and they directed. A lot of their episodes are amazing. So it saddens me that there's not more female directors in Hollywood. I forget what the percentage is, but it's
low.
Super low, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
I was just wondering, like, what the relationship was in terms of picking music for the show, like with the music department on the show.
Music is just it's just a tone, it's a feeling, it gets, and I think this is just in life. You listen to music when you're running, there's a certain time, or when you're maybe just sitting at home relaxing, or when you're in your car, whatever it is, there's music that you play to get into a certain tone, and that's the way we pick music for the show. And last night the whole cast was talking about how between takes they were listening to music in their earbuds to get into the scene. And sometimes I pick the songs based on how they perform in the scene. So that all goes into play.
And I was just wondering, at what point in pre-production, Sam, do you think about shot composition? Is that like as you're writing it, you're like, I want to like compose it in this sort of way, or does that sort of come when you reach the set?
No, I definitely have an idea when I write it, when I'm just thinking about it, when I'm visualizing it. By the way, when I'm listening to music for that scene, it helps me inspire how to shoot it, what to look for when we get there. But then we get there, and the other thing that informs my decision is these guys, because then they want to move that way. Well, I always pictured him walking up this aisle, but Rami tends to actually want to do the opposite of what I initially think. But seriously, you use them to say, okay, the camera should go over here, because honestly, that does feel better and more natural.
Mm-hmm.
That informs a lot of that too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.